Long ago, the earth was filled with people, but in the hearts of many, goodness had begun to fade. There was anger in the cities. People treated one another unfairly.
Turn away from your selfishness!
Mercy and justice. The world was crowded,
Turn away!
but the hearts of people were growing dark. And far across the sky, heavy clouds began to gather, as if warning of something great that was about to come. In those dark days, there was one man who was different from the rest. His name was Noah. Noah walked faithfully with God. He was righteous, patient, and full of trust. When he saw the evil around him, his heart became heavy with sorrow. One day, Noah went up to a quiet hill, away from the noise of the city. He knelt down, bowed his head, and prayed. For Noah knew that even when the world falls into darkness, the light of God can still show the way. As Noah prayed, a warm and gentle light shone through the clouds. For a moment, even the wind seemed to become still. God spoke to Noah. He told Noah that the wickedness on the earth had become great, but he also gave Noah a mission. Noah was to build a great ark. This ark would protect Noah, his family, and the living creatures from the great flood that was coming. The sorrow on Noah's face slowly turned into a deep sense of responsibility. He was no longer working only for his own life. He was working for a new beginning. Noah returned home. His wife, his sons, and the wives of his sons gathered around him. Noah told them about the command God had given him. They had to build a great ark. At first, his family looked at him in shock. There was no sea nearby. There was no rain. But when they saw the determination in Noah's eyes, they understood that this was not an ordinary message. That night, inside their small home, fear, wonder, and faith filled the room, and Noah's family chose to stand with him. The next day, Noah and his sons began to study the plan for the ark. A large parchment lay before them. This would not be an ordinary boat. It would be enormous, strong, and built with many levels. There would be places for the family.
Must build
there
an
would be
ark.
spaces for the animals.
We will be safe
Food
inside.
and supplies would be stored carefully
Great
inside.
flood is coming.
Noah showed
flood?
every detail
How will we
with care,
survive?
because this ark was not just a
We
wooden
must trust
structure, it was a sign of God's mercy. Noah and his sons went into the forest. Among the tall trees, they began their work. Trees were cut, heavy logs were prepared, long wooden beams were shaped. Each piece of wood would become part of the great
This
ark.
is how we will build it.
As sunlight passed
this
through
for
the
the deck?
branches, Noah's
We need more
family
wood
worked
here.
without giving up.
3 levels,
Sometimes
just
their
as he
hands
said.
ached. Sometimes their bodies grew tired. But with every strike and with every beam, hope rose against the coming flood. On dry land, the frame of the great ark slowly began to rise. It was larger than anything the people had ever seen. Noah's sons carried beams, tied ropes, and placed wooden planks into position. Noah watched carefully and guided his family through every step. As the ark grew, its shadow stretched across the ground, and everyone could see it. Noah was not working because the people believed him. He was working because he trusted the word of God. But the people around Noah did not understand. They laughed when they saw him building a giant ark on dry land. "There is no rain," they said. "There is no sea. What is this ark for?" Some pointed at him, others laughed loudly. But Noah did not become angry. He did not answer with bitterness. He simply continued his work, because Noah listened more to the voice of God than to the voices of men. Days passed, weeks passed, months went by, and the ark grew larger and larger. Planks were added. Walls rose high. The levels were completed. Doors, rooms, and passages were prepared. What had started as a simple beginning had become a massive structure reaching toward the sky. And above it, the clouds slowly grew darker, silently announcing the flood that was to come. As the ark neared completion, Noah's family began carrying supplies inside. Grain, dried fruit, hay, clay
Keep
jars
faith,
of water,
my son.
and baskets of food were carefully placed in order. Everything had to be prepared, because the ark would not carry only people, it would also carry animals. Every living creature needed food, safety, and care. Noah's wife and the wives of his sons worked together to organize the inside. The ark was no longer an empty structure. It was becoming a shelter that would carry life through the storm. Then something unexpected happened. From far away, animals began to appear. They came 2 by 2, walking calmly toward the ark. Birds flew through the sky.
Welcome to our new
Camels,
home.
sheep, deer, lions, elephants, and small creatures all moved in the same direction. It was as if an unseen hand was guiding them. Noah stood at the entrance of the ark and looked in wonder. In that moment, he understood again how great this mission truly was. This was not only about survival. This was about preserving life. The animals began to enter the ark through the great wooden ramp. Small creatures moved quickly. Larger animals walked slowly and calmly. Noah's sons gently guided them inside. Birds flew in and rested on the wooden beams. The ark filled with the sounds of life. Footsteps, wings, soft calls, and gentle breathing echoed through the wooden halls. And yet, in all that movement, there was peace. Each creature was being brought to safety before the flood arrived. At last, it was time for Noah and his family to enter. Noah, his wife, his 3 sons, and their wives stood at the door of the ark. For a moment, they looked back. Behind them was the world they had known for many years. But before them was a path they had never walked before. Noah placed his hand gently on the wooden doorway. He took a deep breath. Then he entered the ark with his family. It was a step away from the old world and the first step toward a new beginning. After Noah and his family entered, the great door of the ark slowly began to close. Outside, the first drops of rain touched the earth. Inside, the warm light of lanterns shone against the wooden walls. As the door closed, the noise of the outside world became distant. The ark had become a place of refuge. Noah bowed his head in silence. His family stood beside him. Everything that was happening had begun with the word of God. And now, the great journey was about to begin. Then, the rain began. First, only a few drops fell, then more. Soon it was as if the sky had opened, and rain poured down upon the earth. Water ran through the streets. The ground became soaked. Streams overflowed. People began to understand that Noah's warnings had not been empty words, but the flood had already begun. And in the middle of the storm, the ark stood firm. Inside its wooden walls, Noah, his family, and the living creatures
The
were
windows of
protected.
heaven are opened.
The rain did not stop. The waters rose higher and higher. First, they surrounded the ark. Then they lifted it from the ground, and the great ark Noah had built began to float upon the waves. Outside, the storm was fierce. The sky was dark. The waters moved with great power. But from the small windows of the ark, warm light still shone. Inside, there was life. There was hope. There was the protection of God. Days passed. As the ark moved across the waters, life continued inside. Noah's family cared for the animals. Sheep were fed. Camels were given water. Birds rested on wooden beams. Small animals were kept calm and safe. Sometimes the sound of the storm outside was frightening, but inside the ark, everyone helped one another. Noah gently knelt beside a frightened young animal and comforted it, because inside this ark, more than bodies were being protected. Hope itself was being carried through the storm. Time passed. At last, the rain stopped. The sky slowly began to clear. The waves became calm. The ark floated quietly upon the endless waters. Noah looked out from a small window. Far away, the light of sunrise spread across the surface of the water. Waiting was not easy, but Noah was patient. He knew that the journey God had begun would also have an end. And after that end, there would be a new beginning. One day, Noah released a dove from the window of the ark. The dove flew across the sky and over the waters. Noah and his family waited patiently. Then, the dove returned. In its beak, it carried a fresh olive leaf. A deep joy appeared on Noah's face. That small leaf carried a great message. The waters were going down. The earth was preparing to live. At last, the ark came to rest on a mountain. The doors opened. Noah, his family, and the animals stepped out onto the earth. After the long flood, dry land could be seen again. Green plants began to grow. The sky became bright. The air was fresh. Noah and his family looked upward. Across the clouds, a beautiful rainbow appeared. It was the sign of God's covenant. The earth had been given a new beginning, and the story of Noah remained as a powerful reminder of faith, patience, obedience, and hope. Because sometimes, after the darkest storms, a new promise appears in the sky, and that promise is hope.